We're about to start our first show of the day, so thank you so much for joining us. It is the first time the Plant Power Show is in Johannesburg, and I'm thrilled to be here. I've come from Cape Town and have been part of the Plant Power journey since the beginning. So we're kicking off our weekend with two very incredibly cool chefs that I've been lucky to meet and chat to behind the scenes here, Siphiwe and Andile, who are going to be talking about indigenous South African ingredients, how we can use them in these creative recipes, and a little bit more just about themselves and their food journey, and Andile especially, who's gone through a rediscovering of these ingredients. So let's give a little welcome to our chefs.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. As they say, ladies first, so am I going to go up first? All right. As they've said, I'm Siphiwe Sithole. I'm a farmer, so I'm not necessarily a chef, but I can cook. So I'll cook for my family and those that I love, and I believe that I love you. That's why I made the effort to cook for you. So today, I'm with Chef Andile that I met a couple of years ago, who heard about me and drove all the way back. Then I was down at the Cradle of Humankind, and he came down to meet me at the farm, and he was amazed.
And I was looking for this.
He was looking for this. He had asked all his Eastern Cape friends, and none of them had this. And he did not know that it actually grows in Gauteng. And I said that if plants could come from across the Atlantic Ocean, what would stop something that generally grows in this continent that you cannot grow in Gauteng? Because plants are easy to grow. It's about the weather. It's about the temperatures, what it requires, the rainfall, the soil type. So this is one of the easiest crops you can actually grow. People, some of them call it the wild melon. Others call it the Kalahari or Kalahari melon. It just grows easily, and it seeds itself. You plant one, and then you're just going to have them forever. And most of the time, this is one of those kind of neglected crops, because many people, they leave it in the field. Some people will tell you they don't eat this plant because it reminds them of poverty. They ate it when they had nothing. What they don't know is that this is one of the plants that if we grow it, we could actually extract the edible oil, because the seeds have got more than 40% oil.
Wow,
so we don't
amazing.
have to worry about sunflower and all other stuff. Then the other ingredient that we're going to be working on today is sorghum. Sorghum is part of the millet. So the United Nations declared 2023 as the year of the millets, which is the sorghum as well as the millet. You've got pearl, finger millet. And for this recipe, you can use either. You can either do the finger or pearl millet or foxtail millet, whatever millet that you've got access to. And you can also do the white or the red sorghum. And there's also the gold one. So it really depends what sorghum you have. This is how the sorghum plant would look like, the sorghum stalks. And this is where what we've now cooked actually comes from. This is beautiful. When you grow this, you also attract birds. So you're going to have nature coming to your garden, to your farm. It's just the right thing to do. It's the easiest drought resistant. Over to you, Chef.
Who talks after such a... I was so excited when she said to me, Andile, you are coming to cook with me. I will do the talking, you do the cooking. My name is Chef Andile Somdaka. I'm a chef. I've been a chef for the past 33 years now. To put it into perspective, next year I'll be 34 years as a chef. That's how long I've been in the game. And thank you very much. So a couple of years, as she said, a friend of mine from Eastern Cape, who's based in Eastern Cape, I was actually asking him, where the hell can I get this thing? And then in fact, after I've actually been searching, sometimes some people who are in the Eastern Cape, they bring this thing for me, and I'll probably get it if I'm lucky once a year. And I said, I need to correct this. And I need to find a regular supply of this thing. So then I started talking to farmers, and then Siphiwe Mnyataza, he's the one who referred me to Siphiwe. And ever since that day I met Siphiwe, I could not lay my hands off her, because she produces such an incredible type of crops that we as chefs who are based in the urban sector, we actually have forgotten about these things. And a couple of months ago, when we went to Limpopo,
yes, yeah.
I came across this dish that is cooked by using this melon. And then I was quite worried that I felt guilty that I myself as a chef who knows these things, I did not do justice into these ingredients. The people who are in the urban sector have actually no idea as to these things they exist. The millet, people don't know if these things they exist in the market. So now what happened is now I know about these things, and I didn't do nothing about it. So now what I did is that I said to myself, I'm going to stick around this woman because of she's talking my language. I myself, as a person who's running indigenous restaurant, South African restaurant in South Africa here in Midrand, I want to introduce these dishes into my menu, and the only person who has these things is Siphiwe. So I said to myself, Siphiwe is going to be next to me for the rest of my life. So I have a responsibility to introduce these things into the market. So what is Siphiwe doing? She's a farmer. I'm a chef. Whatever she produce, I cook. Whatever she produce, I cook. And that's what's going to happen.
Andile, tell us a bit more about your restaurant that's here in Johannesburg.
Casting the net backward. I started as a chef in Club Nicolas Hotel in Langebaan, Cape Town, Western Cape, 1990. And 4 years later, boom, I became personal chef to Nelson Mandela.
Oh, wow.
And, yes, and the requirements for me to become his personal chef, they needed someone who has a knowledge of the food that he used to eat in his background. So they needed people who know how to cook people who know how to cook which is this what I'm going to be doing here now today, and a whole lot of other dishes, impokoko, amasi, isonga samanzi, steamed bread, and all those things. There's a long list of them. So now, and it came handy. That's why every time when people are asking me as to when did I become a chef, and I always tell them that I became a chef from my childhood when my mother taught me how to do the basic things at home. That's where my beginning as a chef began for me. When my older sisters, because I'm the last born at home, when my older sisters showed me how to do this, how to do that, for me to become a chef, it started that time, and they were not aware that they were molding a chef here. And when Madiba needed that person, I was qualified. I was molded from home. So guys, don't take it for granted what you are teaching your children. They might end up in big places for something, teaching them something, because of cooking is a life skill. I mean, you said it's for survival. You cook to eat, and we can't have our children buying takeaways when they can prepare their own meals by themselves. So I tell even my children today that, look, you don't have to become a chef like me, but at least know how to cook. And me, that's how it started with me.
Yes. So tell us a little bit more about this dish that we're putting together over here.
I'm going to do 2 dishes today.
Okay.
Everything that is going to be done here today is actually motivated, is all created by this amazing dish. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start frying. Let me just test my stove here first. Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
I'm going to start frying because I'm going to do the millet now.
Okay.
And we prepared already the tasters. I'm going to get my pan to burn first.
All right.
And I'm going to use this one that is not going to overpower the dish because this is a hero dish. The millet is a hero dish. I don't want nothing to overpower this thing. That's why the meat eaters in the chef industry, when you are cooking a duck, you can't use the full-bodied red wine. You can't use the dry white wine because they're quite powerful and strong. They are going to overpower the product that you're going to be cooking. The duck has got that gamey taste, so you don't want something that's going to overpower it. We use in the duck industry Pinot Noir to make sure that it gets into it and it settles and then it complements the dish. So now, in the sense of the millet, I'm going to use this mild, not overpowering olive oil. We're very lucky. Do you want to explain some more, Siphiwe?
Okay, yeah. All right, thank you. So we're doing the white sorghum today. You can actually mix the two. So while Chef Andile is busy cooking, I'll do some talking and then, yeah. So we'll just have got a nice conversation. So we talk and cook at the same time.
And please feel
which
free
is what
to ask
happens
questions.
generally at home. So we're doing the white sorghum. You could actually mix the two together if you wanted to make a nice, colorful dish. I always say to people, instead, so sorghum is much more affordable compared to quinoa. So a lot of the time, if you ask to start maybe changing your grains, this is also gluten-free. So you're looking at something that's gluten-free, drought tolerant. It's good for the soil. So when you're growing sorghum or you're supporting farmers that grow sorghum, you're actually supporting mainly your smallholder farmers. In the country, there's a focus on the red sorghum because it's used on many other stuff. You barely ever come across the white sorghum. We do have it on our stand 146 at African Marmalade. If you're looking for these ingredients and you want to know where you could get them, we do supply quite a number of outlets around Gauteng. We do some of the food club hubs around the country. So if you're looking for where am I going to get this, because the bad thing is that you come to these places, you get excited, and then you think, but I don't live here. I happen to come here. Where would I get the stuff?
Yeah.
So Chef Andile will tell us what he's putting in there.
So I've actually used very same thing again. She gave me the wild garlic, and she gave me the natural garlic, which I used, and I used the red onion. I don't know why it's called red, because it's not red.
Purple.
But anyway, yeah. And then also I'm using the oyster mushrooms here, and I'm gonna cut some of the sun-dried tomatoes, because of the dish has to have a color. I always tell my guys when I'm working with guys, you can cook nice food, but the food must also look good.
Yes. And why the oyster mushrooms, just out of curiosity, compared to any other mushrooms that we could have used here?
Well, the oyster mushroom have got nice texture compared to your button mushrooms and the others. We just thought that, you know what, you want something that has got a little bit of a texture that is just going to complement that the sorghum or millet or whatever that we could have used. So this is just a perfect choice.
Wow.
Those who want to see the texture, I'll just bring this around. Yeah. I think it's such a versatile ingredient to include in the recipes. Okay. See, it almost has this like pulled texture to it.
Okay. Yeah, and what we did, obviously to give a little bit more color, you could use pumpkin on the dish. So you could have a pumpkin, you could have a butternut, any of the sweet vegetable, or you could have sweet potato. So on this stand, we've got white, yellow, and orange sweet potato. So you could just have got this, a medley of beautiful ingredients that will just give you that beautiful...
Again, the potatoes?
Yeah.
The potatoes?
Yeah, so we've got here, so you can see this, we use the purple sweet potato as well as the orange one, but you could have the white, the yellow, and you could also cook it with the skin on. So for more flavor. So it's really up to you what you want to do with it. Use whatever that you have. It's got to be organic though, so that the taste that you're going to get here, it's based on something that there's been no harmful pesticides. It has not been sprayed. It has not been irrigated. The sweet potato we're using actually was farmed on dry farming.
Yes.
No irrigation. Sweet potato is a dry farming kind of a plant. You do not need to irrigate it. It does not need any additional thing. It is meant to be a sweet potato. In Afrikaans, they say it's a soet patat. So you don't add the sugar or the sweetener to make it sweet. It is naturally sweet. If your sweet potato is not sweet, then it is not sweet potato. It must be a potato.
Yeah, I was quite embarrassed. We were in Abu Dhabi last year as SA chefs. When one speaker there said there are some people around the world, and in fact in that list we were also mentioned, that on a sweet potato, which is natural, it's got natural sweet, we add sugar in it.
Yeah, there is no need to add sugar or any sweetener for that matter on sweet potatoes. It is naturally sweet, and a lot of the people that says that kids don't love vegetables, if you get them to taste the organic sweet potato that we cook, because you could make chips, you could make whatever that you want, you could mash, sweet potato, it's such a versatile thing. And I grew up eating sweet potato, for breakfast. So you have it with your tea. We would roast it also on the fire. And we need to bring in that excitement in terms of our food options in this country, because our options have been really reduced to very, very limited stuff.
Beautiful. Wow, look at the colors. And the different textures here too, and it smells beautiful. Andile, just talk us through the different herbs that you are adding here and the spices.
She's planting the wild garlic.
Yeah.
I know where to find it now as from today. I didn't know.
So don't use wild garlic as a snake repellent. That's what people do. They kind of plant it around their houses to repel snakes.
Yes.
And we know it as one of those things you could actually use for cooking. It smells very nice. So you enjoy it. It also tastes very good.
There you go. And then also I've used the wild garlic and normal garlic. I use the red onion. I use the Himalayan salt, which is fine. And I also used a pepper, which is salt and pepper. And then obviously I dust it with parsley.
Parsley. Italian parsley, or does it matter?
It's Italian parsley, yeah. And then obviously also that's a seasoning alone.
Yes, yes.
And then there's those potatoes that she actually mentioned because I will prefer her to talk on the vegetable side because she farms them. Now when I want to harvest them, I know where to get. I know her home address.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm a
good,
farmer,
guys?
one of the things that I do, I know that some of you are gardening. You know, if you're living there, if you're a conscious living human being, you're also thinking about how do I grow this thing? How do I make sure I continue to have this? It's very rewarding. You don't have to have a massive garden. You could really grow it on sacks or anywhere, whatever that you want to do with it, but then have it there. And remember, you can also eat the sweet potato leaves. So instead of having the spinach or amaranth, because amaranth is out of season, we had to use spinach. So what you could actually do, you could take the very same sweet potato leaves and chop them, and then that becomes your green on the dish.
Munolo took beautiful
Very
pictures
cool.
of me harvesting your potato leaves.
Yes,
the sweet potato
yes,
leaves.
yeah.
And we made amazing morocco with it. Amazing.
Okay.
Now I think, guys, I'm going to start dishing up the tasters for you guys to taste what I was actually cooking here.
Okay.
I haven't even tasted it. I trust it.
Does anyone have any questions
but-
for our expert chef and gardener, farmer,
Yes.
amazing cultivator of all these indigenous ingredients?
But I'm actually taking a risk, guys. I know I'm a qualified judge. I know a chef who cooked a dish. He knew that this was salt. And then without tasting the food, his food was sent to judges. Actually failed the competition. That was actually salt. Sugar.
Ooh.
So it's important that us as chefs, especially young chefs, must taste your food every time before you send it to customers. Taste your food.
Chef Andile,
Yes, ma'am.
can you maybe just explain to us how you cook the millets?
There are people who prefer meat eaters. They will rather sometimes use chicken stock because you want to give it a body. Because of this one is cooked plain. Because of considering that this event is for vegetarians, for vegans. I just boil it. It takes a year to cook this thing.
Yeah. The best thing is actually to soak it overnight. Just like you do with other grains. So you wash it nicely and then soak it overnight in warm water and leave it there. And then in the morning you can start boiling it. And I always say that, we all press for time. So what you can do is that boil enough. You might boil like 300 or 400 grams and then just put it in your freezer bags and keep it there in your freezer or your containers. Whenever you need it, it's there. So it's very easy to put together a salad, to make a nice, dinner or lunch or whatever. Sorghum is very filling. So you're going to be filled for longer than if you got a sandwich or whatever. So this is the best thing to do. I just boil mine and put a little bit of salt so that whenever I don't have to add the salt after it absorbs it, just like you do with beans. You don't cook the beans and then add the salt. It's got to be boiling together so that it absorbs it all in there.
Yeah, so as I was explaining, you soak it in a stock. You can use vegetable stock, you can use chicken stock, you can use beef stock. Because it's up to you if you want to give it a bit of a flavor. As she said, you just follow the same procedure of soaking it overnight on boiling water to make sure that the next day, in fact, this is actually better than the millet.
Yep.
The millet takes 200 years to cook this thing. This is also, this is, I don't want to cook this.
Yeah.
But this is very, very simple to cook. And after that, once it's cooked, then you can play around with it. Yeah. Here, we've decided to use, as we have explained earlier, sun-dried tomato, mushrooms, a variety of potatoes, and obviously the seasoning of your own choice. But then the one that we've done here now is we're going to do another one with spinach. You can also add spinach in it. So there's it's up to you, your creativity.
Yeah.
You can even put what's that cheese, the Chinese cheese?
Tofu.
You can even add tofu.
So whatever that you want to do, it really depends. Is it like a side dish? Is it a salad? Is it your main course or whatever it is? But it's very exciting.
Us as chefs, we even use them as salads. Spot on. And then also at home, you can use it as a morning porridge.
People are eating your quinoa salad. So this would be the same way. It's a grain. So if you have your quinoa salad, you could also be having whatever other stuff that you do. There's amaranth grains that people use. People use couscous. So instead of having your couscous, this would actually be the better option.
Yeah. Now,
And just to remind everybody that's here, so 2023 is the year of the millet. If we had run a proper campaign, people would have planted 2023 towards the end of the year. Now the planting season is coming up, so which is going to be from about September, October, when spring begins. Please do plant it, even if you're not planting to harvest, because obviously if you're going to put in about 4 or 5 seeds, you're not going to have that much. I'm encouraging all of you to just throw it wherever you go, so that at least we can invite nature back into our lives. We can see birds and butterflies and whatever other stuff. So just throw it out there. It just grows. It is drought resistant. You do not need to water it. Thank you. There's a question somewhere there.
Yes. Let me bring my microphone over. One second.
Thank you. Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
I would like to ask about sweet potatoes.
Yes.
I hear you mention that they don't require irrigation.
Yes.
I've planted a sweet potato about 2 or so months ago.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that if I go for like 2 days or so and then not water it, the leaves...
Yeah, you didn't plant it at the right time. This is now winter. So what happened with sweet potato is a spring summer crop. So your spring starts from September and ends in February. If you are in the high veld, like in Gauteng, or you're in a frost-prone area, you have got to stop planting it by end of December. Because if you're in an area where you get hit by frost around about March, I mean, I'm in an area where we get frost around about March. If the latest, around about April, we're going to be hit by frost. So you can't plant it. The leaves are going to die. If you come to our farm now, all the leaves are brown, but the sweet potato is still okay. The one that is white on the outside is already having blemishes, because when you get that frost and then the icy water gets into that. But if you have the one that's purple on the outside, but the flesh is white, it's still going to be okay. So it is a spring summer crop. That is sweet potato. That's when you plant it. Right now, it's going to stay on the ground, so it's going to be kind of dormant, and it's going to come back. It's going to bounce back.
Yeah.
Any other questions in the
And
meantime?
also, just to explain, guys, it can be softer than this. It should actually be softer than this. But the lesser you cook, this is better than overcooking it, because of you're killing the nutrients once you overcook it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to explain that.
All right.
Any questions?
Hi. There's a question on the other side.
So, do you use your millet and sorghums for like millet bakes, sorghum bakes, patties, and for desserts?
Oh, yes, yeah. So we've got the sorghum flour, we've got millet. So we've got it. We either have got crushed on the sorghum side, we do it coarse, or we do it fine. So when it's fine, it's in a flour form. So you could use it in your pancakes, in your baking, in your muffins, or anywhere if you're gluten intolerant like myself. So then I use more of that. And then I do the same thing with the cassava flour. I just mix. But remember that this is a gluten-free flour, so it doesn't rise easily. So you've got to have other stuff that's going to serve as your rising agent. Otherwise, you're going to have those flat muffins and flat breads or whatever, but it still works. So I use it for baking, and we've got some sorghum flour on our stand. If people are looking for sorghum flour, you can find it on stand 146. Thank you.
Again, guys, if you remember, I always keep saying, anything that you cook, give me food that looks good. It must not just taste good. Give me food that looks good. The colors are everything to me.
I just want to say we're doing some more samples now to bring out to the rest. Yes.
There's 2 more samples. Because on the side, I actually started talking about the Karoo melon, and it's going to be also infused with that very same sorghum.
Okay.
So we're going to do the tasting now with
and
the
these are the seeds of the melon. In Zulu, they call it ibhece. And then about Xhosas and other people bati Jodo, and I think also in Zimdebele, Umqoqozi, Ntyabotyi, Amswati, Lichoti Gitsi. So you can do whatever that you want to do with this thing. These are the seeds. If you've got you can also make the jam. The Afrikaans call it makatan, but makatan is plural for likatane. So if it's 1 kilikatane and there's 2, they grow very big. Yeah, they can get very massive. You could easily have it being like 8, 12 kg. So with 1, you can feed many people. So it is one of those easy to grow stuff. It doesn't need any nurturing. It will just grow there on its own, and you could just enjoy it throughout the year. You can make some preserves. You know the people that make things like your fig. You know those fig preserves that you would have on those platters or whatever. So you could easily have this melon as a preserve or as a jam. the traditional way that they cook it, most of the cultures in Southern Africa, that you cook this and you add some maize meal or pounded sorghum. So if you've pounded your sorghum, you can also add this. And you're just unlimited in terms of options. You could be as creative as you want to be. I mean, it's your food. After all, it goes to your stomach. You decide how you want to eat it or how you want to really cook it.
To what you just made now?
It's different, yeah. And then in fact, we were talking about me doing a dessert dish. In fact, I want a competition.
Yes, yeah.
Using a dessert dish.
Oh, yes,
doing
yeah.
a dessert, and that's not my strength.
Yeah, so he did a dessert with this thing, because I think so one of the things we do as our company called African Marmalade is that when we started the company way back in 2015, it was to take African food out of the periphery into the mainstream. I did not know that one day I'm going to come into chefs. I just knew that I was living in Cape Town at the time, and I was starting to think about the business idea. And what I did not understand was that why was I living in Pinelands and have to go to some dingy, dodgy place to actually find African food? I wanted to improve access so that when you're looking for African food, I can walk into any outlet, I can walk into any shop. I don't have to travel for an hour to actually go get African indigenous crops. And we need to actually improve access, because these are good for us. But we're also faced with serious climate challenges. So a lot of the stuff that people are growing, it guzzles water, it is unnecessary. So there are indigenous options that are much more healthier, that are also kind to the environment.
My training. Yeah.
And you're also helping to build the economy, because then you're going to get more subsistence farmers, you're going to get smallholder farmers, you're going to localize your food. You're going to know that you can find your food. It does not have to travel for thousands of kilometers to get to where you are. So this is the right way to go. Please try and indigenize your gardens. If you say, I've got a garden, I always say, so what are you growing? What is on your garden? It can't be all the water guzzling stuff. Be responsible.
If you were to see my garden, here is a person who actually inspired it. For my restaurant, I don't buy a lot of the crops that I'm serving at my restaurant. I'm growing my own spinach, I'm growing my own cabbage, I'm growing my own herbs, I'm growing my own micro herbs. Everything is coming from my garden. It's a fault.
Yeah. Because again, is that if you want to reduce your carbon footprint, you don't have to drive to my farm just to go and pick up a few leafy vegetables that you can grow on your own, and you don't need a very big space. And the vegetables can grow together with your flowers. So there's nothing wrong with having flowers in your garden. And also, please utilize the front of your garden. So I always say to people, I'm not a fan for backyard garden, because you put food at the front of your house. Where I come from, food used to grow in front of the house, and if you needed something, you just stepped out of your kitchen and the food was there. You didn't have to think about it, because now you're going to end up changing what you're going to eat if you have to walk to the back of the house. So please, let's have gardens at the front of our house. Let's have less paving in our yards, and let's grow our own food. There's no need for a lot of defensive paving, and then you're spending a fortune in actual food. You can grow your own food. It's not that difficult. I can also assist you. I can give you some virtual talks. You can send me a WhatsApp, and then I can guide you and coach you so that you grow your own food. We need to be more self-sufficient.
Yeah. Another thing is also when you grow your own food, the advantage is we buy. All of us, we've done that. We buy and dustbin. Buy, fridge, and dustbin. Buy, fridge, and dustbin. We do all that all the time. We do that all the time. And then when you have your own garden, you only pick up what you are going to cook that day. You only pick up what you need for that day. That's the advantage. Yeah,
so you reduce your food waste. So you're not going to have a lot of stuff that's going to end up in a landfill, or you're going to throw it away. So this is the thing. If you buy from us, one of the things that we try to do is that we encourage people to save seeds. So whatever seeds that you're getting from us, if you buy seeds from us, you grow food, you are going to be able to replant this. These are heirloom seeds. These have been passed from generation to generation. We've got beautiful stories. We can tell you where we got this particular bean. Some beans, we have not even tasted them, because we've been growing them for seed, so that we could get to a stage where more people can actually have access to that.
Yes. And in fact, also what I did also, I've harvested, I don't know how many tons of pumpkins and these things in my yard. Because I actually every time I'm opening a butternut, I feel so guilty, guys, to throw the seeds away. I feel so wrong. I've got a number of seeds that I keep in my house, and I'm replanting them. And I mean, you go to a store, you go and buy the butternut seeds. They give you exactly what you keep on throwing away every day. They give you exactly the same thing. Why do you pay for things that you throw them in the dustbin?
But how would you prepare those seeds? Can you give us a recommendation?
You
need to wash them.
Just wash them?
So what you normally do, you just wash them and you dry. And just leave them there to dry. Up until once they've dried, you actually put them in glass jars.
Okay.
So
And
all the glass jars that you normally have, I normally write. I would say like, this is the African Melon 2022, if it was from the 2022 harvest or 2023. And remember that it's always advisable to keep seeds for a year. So if you've kept them for longer than the year, you'll wonder, I planted but nothing grows, but you've kept them for longer. So you need to keep your seeds alive. That is why if you move house, let's say for instance you were staying in a house where you could grow. Now you move into an apartment or a flat and you don't have. Rather give those seeds to people, because when you're now ready to actually go plant, you could take this and actually replant. So just keep this in glass jars, not in plastic containers or in brown bags. Also, what you're trying to do when you put it in a glass jar is that, let's say for instance with grains, you'll normally have got things like weevils. But if you put things like basil, or you take your alu, you dry that alu from any of the alu plants. Once you've dried that and you turn it into an ash, you then crush that ash and you put in your seeds into that. You will then know that they have actually protected them. You can use your wood ash, you can use your ash from the alu plant, or use some basil, as a way to actually control the weevils. When you put them in a glass jar like this, if there was a weevil here, it's not going to get there. But if you put it in a brown bag or in a plastic, you've actually contaminated and you've destroyed a whole lot of seeds. So try and just, I'm sure a lot of us are using a lot of glass containers. Use them wisely. And if you've got extra glass jars that you don't know what to do with them, please send them our direction. We would appreciate that.
Thank you. And Andile, just because we've got the samples going out now from the second dish, can you just remind us the difference between the first sample that went out and this one now?
The first sample had no spinach.
Right.
And the second sample is got spinach. So the creativity is up to you. You can put anything that you think of. I'm excited about with this dish. The dish that is coming. This dish excites me. But I'm using the millet for the first time on it. Yeah. I'm just trying to pair the African dish to another African dish. Because these are naturally South African products. Yeah. Things that people are asking, what is your South African food? And a lot of people don't know what's South African food. Yeah. And people who are here now, they've actually got an idea as to what is really indigenous South African food. So whatever Siphiwe is producing, I cook.
Yeah. I always say that, I've traveled through the continent, and each country, I remember, I don't remember just like landing at the airport, I remember what I ate. And sometimes the flavors and the smell, it's so fresh that I could literally remember. I remember what I ate in Cameroon. I can tell you what I ate in Malawi or Zambia, Tanzania, Zanzibar, Mauritius. I remember the food. If you know how loving, and normally in a lot of these African countries, when you visit, is that you don't end up in a hotel. If you are there for business, maybe you'll spend first day eating alone at a hotel, and day 2. And by day 3, I say to them, guys, I'm not eating hotel food. I want to eat what the locals are eating. Because the problem with the hotels is that it's an international hotel, so they kind of serve international cuisine. I said if I wanted to eat that, I would go to that country. So I'm not looking for Mediterranean food in Ghana. I'm looking for Ghanaian food. So I'll eat what the Ghanaians are eating. So you have got options. And I always say that the indigenous African diet is more plant-based than any diet that I know.
Yeah.
It is more plant-based than anything that I know. Because from where I came up, we barely ate meat unless somebody was arriving. So most of the time, we just ate plants. And we had so many options. People say that, oh, I love morogo. I always say to them, which one? Because morogo is just like an umbrella name for the African leafy greens. So there is amaranth, there is blackjack, which is loaded in beta carotene. It's got more beta carotene than many other stuff, even butternut and carrots. So you could eat all of that other stuff. So you've got those options. You could eat whatever texture, taste that you want. You could bring it from those green, the leafy greens, the pumpkins, the various African pumpkins that you have. You can also eat the pumpkin leaves. You just have got so many options.
Yeah. For me, this is a master class. Millet.
It's
how easy is it to get the white sorghum? I know the red one well, but I can't say that I've seen the white one in the shops.
Yeah, the white one is not available, and I'm glad that Checkers is also a sponsor of this show, so I am hoping that they'll come to us and say that they would like to have white sorghum in their shelves. I've seen even some of the big retailers, they've figured out how to get red sorghum, but I think it's got to do because the red sorghum is also used in umkombot, in the traditional beer. So they've neglected this one, which is much more nicer and fancier. So if you're looking for it, I always say to people, if you want something to be stocked up, go to the shop and say, do you guys have got white sorghum? And they say we don't. And you come back next week and you ask them again. And say, don't you have farmers? Don't you have people that can supply you? So if we get a push from the consumers asking, it's easy for people to demand certain stuff, but when it comes to stuff that's African, they don't.
For sure.
So if you're asking for the African pumpkins in the shops, you're going to force the retailer to actually say that, okay, maybe we must actually farm a Sithole or farm a Siphiwe to actually supply us with the African pumpkin, or to say, we don't know how these pumpkins look like, and I can show you. And then we can start having them in store, instead of just having the Hubbard squash and the flat white and the gray and the blue pumpkins.
So I think I like what you just said, because as I said, if you could remember when I was holding this thing next to my heart, I felt it like it's my responsibility and my negligence also not to introduce this thing to the mainstream market. And I also think that also the big corporates, if they can play a role in also introducing these things into the shelves. And it must not only just go with the demand from the customers, they must take it even further. They must invite the likes of her to go and promote and introduce, because once you introduce these things to the market, and the market is gonna embrace them. So there are, because of the trouble in the market, these picket pays and checkers and everybody, they are operating in the urban sector where these things are not known. Yeah. Absolutely not known.
Yeah, so what happened, I always say the problem with the South African farmers, they've been growing the same stuff they've been farming for the past 20 or 30 years. They don't seem to understand that demographics have changed, the tastes and demands. And also is that we are here in Gauteng. Gauteng, it's a province of migrants. Many people have moved from somewhere else to here. So what do you eat when you get to Gauteng? You end up eating what the farmers are growing and what is available in our stores. So you are free to choose what to eat purely based on what is available in the shelves. And the food must follow the people. So if we've got more people from Mpumalanga like myself, I come from a small town, Malelan, I really expect to find Ilugushe and a number of things here. So the food must follow the people. If you see, I always say that, so if you see, for instance, the Asian market, suddenly there's a lot of pak choy and whatever other vegetables, and I keep on saying, Haibo, Kanti, where's my own vegetables? They are not there. Why am I seeing pak choy and whatever other stuff? And exactly. Why am I seeing so many different cabbages? There's the Chinese cabbage, there's a red one, and there's a green cabbage, and there's whatever other stuff. But then when you go into a shop and they happen to have the African leafy greens, they'll put it as murokho. And I say to them, but which murokho do you have?
So
because there's a certain murokho I might be looking for. So when you say you've got murokho, please specify amaranth. If it's amaranth. If it's blackjack, say it's blackjack. If it's nightshade, say so. If it's lirutu, say so what it is. Let's take the trouble. Same thing with our fresh produce market. They do not bother to actually stratify and streamline. If I was going to shop online or I was going to make a decision whether I'm going to drive to a fresh produce market, so when I go online, I want to see if you've got a stock. I can't just be confronted with murokho.
Yeah, so that's quite nice because of right now I think we're living in very interesting times where things are really, really changing at the expense, things have been done over years and years and years at the expense of our own heritage and cultural foods. So now if we have the likes of Checkers being part of what is happening here, the future is getting brighter and brighter, and we haven't lost hope, and really because of loosely. These type of dishes now, they've quietly cropped into the menus of restaurants. They're quietly cropping into the menus of hotels. We are actually taking the bulls by its horn. In our restaurant, we've never served a pizza. We've never, not that anything is wrong with pizza, there's nothing wrong with pizza, but we're trying to promote what is. The time when we were going through COVID, it was so nice that we were not buying anything from outside. We were using things from South Africa. We were using wines and everything from South Africa. We were using foods from South Africa. At some stage, some of us were very jealous that please close the borders of food. Let's eat what we have. Let's consume what we have. We were not suffering. We have our own food here in South Africa, but again, unfortunately, we have. I mean, there's a chef who lives in France, who's my friend. He says to me, he comes to South Africa, he comes and see tomatoes that are said to be coming from Spain.
Yeah.
During that time in Spain, these tomatoes are not in season. Yeah. What is happening? Yeah. Why don't we have tomatoes grown from South Africa? Yeah. Why are we not having this national pride of our own things?
We've got to eat stuff that's seasonal,
yes.
But we also have got to teach people that you can't have a watermelon throughout the year. You know, sometimes, I mean, as a farmer, I get somebody who said, oh, no, I want this. And I said to them, but I mean, this is like August. How is that possible?
You know,
we just cannot have that kind of stuff. So we need to educate people. You can have the African calabash pots when they're in season. Or if you've preserved them, you've decided, okay, fine, I'm going to freeze them, or whatever that you're going to do. So we need to be able to eat what is in season. We also need to support the local farmers. The local farmers, I mean, I aggregate as a farmer because I realize that I'm not sitting on 10 or 50 or 100 hectares. So how do I make sure that if somebody said we would like to have a ton of this thing once a month, how am I going to make sure that as a smallholder farmer I can supply that ton? It's through working with a network of other farmers that are going to grow the same variety, the same product that is needed, so we can actually supply. So what we need is that people need to eat local, they need to eat seasonal, because that is just what the system requires. And also we're going to put together a chart that tells you what is in season or what you can grow when on the African indigenous stuff. And a lot of them, they are easy to grow, so you don't really have got to sweat. If you can grow and you can share. You can take one seed and plant. You can imagine how many of these things you're going to get. And you can then make the jams. You can also, reintroduce the community spirit.
Andile, can you talk us through what you have been preparing now for the last... I mean, we started with the melon in the very beginning. Just talk us through the whole process from start to finish.
The trick about cooking the thing that takes longer first is it gives you enough time to do other things. That's why when we are doing catering, if there's a protein in the event, we do the lamb first or the beef first, and then the salads, we then start with salads immediately after the meat is in the fire. So that's a trick here. This thing takes longer to cook. In fact, the thing that takes longer to cook was the first dish, but we pre-cooked it to make sure that it actually makes sense to this presentation. I boiled it. Just normal natural water, just boil it, and I always love to leave some seeds in it, especially when I'm doing umkawetanga, which is the pumpkin.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Pumpkin what? Umkawetanga.
Yes, yeah, we call it...
It's the pumpkin pap. We loosely can translate it as pumpkin pap.
We call it sweat. So
your polenta that you get it from Italy. That's exactly what it is, and it's a South African dish. Why would we have to buy polenta from Italy when we have these things here in South Africa? So that's what it is. So, but then this one we use the white melon. We just boil it, cut it soft, fine, and small little cubes to make sure that we reduce the cooking time. Just boil it, no salt. Salt can ruin this dish. Don't put salt in this dish. I've tried it. I've eaten it as a young man. When I saw it being cooked already, eating it, I was blown away. I was so happy. I even cried. But then when I started cooking this thing, practicing myself at home as a chef, I kept on ruining it by putting salt. And then I was told by the experts that don't put salt, chef. I know you're a chef, but don't put salt.
Yeah, no.
Then I stayed away from salt in this dish.
Yeah.
Just boil it naturally. Right at the end, you can mash it. It's actually good to mash it. Yeah. But I don't have a masher yet, but it's already nicely cooked, soft.
I'd like to actually bring some of the melon back out just so we can have a look at what it looks like before it obviously got into the chop state and into the beautiful dish here.
Yeah.
What is the taste like on its own?
It's almost like, okay, so this is what gave birth to what we know as the watermelon. So it's bland. It's almost like doesn't have a taste, but you can eat it raw, but you know what, it's not as tasty when it's raw. It's better when it's cooked. So it's kind of a very bland kind of a stuff. It is a squash, but generally you don't eat any of the squashes raw. You need to cook that. You can eat it raw. I've been to a wine pairing where people said, okay, let's try and see which wine would go well with this. So you will try that and be creative, do whatever that you want to do with it. It's a nice light dish.
Yeah. Boiled Right at the end, salt, sugar, not salt, sugar. You know, this thing of a chef. Sugar, and I touched it a bit with
Some cinnamon.
cinnamon.
Yeah. He's a chef. He had to throw in some other stuff, some interesting
I touched it with
And I saw
ingredients.
some almond flour as well, right?
Yeah.
Because of I've been using the sorghum for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm experimenting something, the way to cook, you know.
Yeah.
And then I put almond because I wanted to hold because it was just loose.
Yeah, also just to bring it a little bit of a protein. So if you were eating that and you said, okay, where am I going to get my protein on this meal? Then if you put in your almond flour, then you'll be getting that. Otherwise, also if you want it to be bound together, general, because now the sorghum used is whole. It's not the milled sorghum. So it's not going to be able to bind it together. So what you needed then, that's why then the almond flour then come into place to actually bind it. Otherwise, you would have just used your pounded sorghum and your pounded millet or your pounded maize.
Yeah, this thing tastes so good. I'm actually jealous now.
Okay.
I'm gonna prepare it at
I
home.
come from Mpumalanga, so we eat this. It might be an
it's very
acquired
nice.
taste for other people because if you didn't grow up eating it, you might not understand it. Other people, you know what, they haven't eaten it. And the nice thing with growing indigenous stuff is that people tell you that, people will say, no, I remember one person I grew up with or a friend or at varsity or at school, somebody during holidays or weekend would come with this kind of a dish. So some of the dishes that the ingredients we are using, they're helping people to rekindle some very childhood memories, things that, you might have grown up somewhere in KZN, you might have grown up in Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and the indigenous food is what is going to unite us. It's going to remind us of who we are as people. And what we are hoping for is that we see more chefs using the ingredients from the crops that we're actually growing, because that is the only way we are going to be able to grow from the 1 hectare to 4 hectares and whatever. Otherwise, if we're not being supported, I don't see other chefs in other countries flying in ingredients whenever they've got events or they've got competitions, but our very own chefs could end up importing stuff because they think that is cool. Some of the mushrooms, I come from the Lowveld where we've got some of the most amazing mushrooms that just grow there in the wild.
Yeah.
I don't even know when they happened, but you walk around and these ones are edible, and we're taught as kids which mushrooms are edible, which ones are not edible.
Any questions from the audience about the dessert or any more of the farming practices? Yes?
Hi, my name is Michael, and thank you for your talk. You were talking about the local farmers and to be supporting the SME farmers in particular who don't export. Mm-hmm. Is there any register of all those farmers in South Africa available?
I will speak from thank you for your question. I'll speak from my side. What I've done is started putting together a network of farmers. So if you said you were looking for farmers in Limpopo, the ones that I'm working with, I would have their record. I would also know how big is their farm, what are they currently growing, and I only work with farmers that are growing stuff naturally or organically. So I start with a lot of the farmers growing stuff naturally, and I work towards getting an organic certification. If it's going to be for an export, then we assist them to actually get through the global gap, because you might have the produce, but if you have not done the compliance stuff, you can't get it. But from our side, we could share what we have, and depending on what commodities we are looking for.
Now, would it be able to get it in the Gauteng area, for example, as a personal person, to buy it for everyday use?
Oh yes, yeah, you can. So we have quite a group of farmers from your Hammanskraal, your Valmanstal, even some of the upper side of Mpumalanga in your Kwandebele area or whatever. So we have got stuff. So we can tell you, we also issue a monthly availability list that tells you what is available. What is available is not necessarily coming from us, but coming from the network of farmers.
And how do you find that information? Do you sign up via newsletter or
if you
something?
if you go into any of our social media channels,
yes,
which could be your TikTok, your WhatsApp, your Facebook, and you just look for African Marmalade, you would find this Marmalade, not as in Mama, and not as in Mama Africa, but as in Marmalade the jam.
Yes.
So look for African Marmalade and you will find there. And you can just inbox us. Our cell phone number is open, it's public. You drop us a WhatsApp or an SMS and say, hi, I'm sorry and so I saw you at the Plant Powered Show at Kyalami. I am looking for this. Would you know who would help you? You might be looking for marula nuts. I mean, the chef that did a demo earlier, and he's only doing it at 2:30. Chef Gregory, he was looking for marula nuts, and we happened to find it for him.
And are you able to do deliveries as well?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do deliveries in the Pretoria area. We also do Joburg East, and we haven't started doing the South. We want people that would be able to say, listen, you can drop off the orders at my place, because you know what? A lot of people live in estates, and we spend a lot of time trying to wait to be open, to be let in, and the PIN code, and we forget. I'm just a farmer, so I'm living off the grid. So these modern stuff, sometimes they confuse me. I'd rather spend more time in the field and also spending more time working with farmers, guiding, coaching them to make sure that you get these great things. Chef Andile, I see you're getting a thumbs up.
It's actually very good to visit her. To visit the place, then you're going to see a lot of other things that are happening there.
Yeah, we do farm
tours. Every time when I get there, I mean, she has a seed bank. She calls it a seed bank. She's got a whole lot of list of these things.
That's
amazing. Come on.
Currently, I've got more than 60 different types of beans. So you are spoiled for choice. And each bean tastes differently. So you can eat beans every day or every week. It's up to you. So we've got those stuff. We've got the grains. We've got the beans. We've got the nuts, different colors. We've got black nuts. We've got striped ones.
So if you go there, you'll thank me later.
Perfect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's how I want the competition. In fact, one thing that is missing there is vanilla extract.
Aha. Okay. I definitely want to try some now too, so I can get in on this action.
Thank you.
It's very nice, yeah.
All right.
And now, right now, we are going to be cooking together. One of the days, we're going to be trying to come up with a pudding made out of the very same melon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Please, can you give us the details of how we go about going on a tour at your farm? And the other thing I want to know is, how do you know when to eat pumpkin seeds, sweet potato leaves? I see it growing, and I know people eat the flowers and everything, but I haven't been exposed to it. So I'm very reluctant to eat it in my own garden, for example, because I don't know how.
Yes.
What do you do with the pumpkin leaf before you eat it? Because it's a bit...
Yeah, so what happens with the pumpkin leaves, you need to eat them while they're young and tender. Almost like you would have with your baby spinach. So you don't eat the hard leaves. And there's a way of how you're picking. Because if you're picking at the wrong place, you're actually going to stunt the growth. You're going to reduce the number of pumpkins that you're going to have. So you need to know what you are doing. But I'm probably going to do a video that I can post and share for people to know how to harvest. You need to de-string the pumpkin leaves. So when you hold that pumpkin, you actually, when you're holding it with the leaf being on this side, you just de-string it. You de-string it. It's almost like your spinach that you just chop. This one you de-string it. Then you can wash it and you chop it and you cook. And you can add pounded peanuts to add a source of protein. So you add pumpkin or whatever that you want to add.
And so we tend to make educational content. So if you look on TikTok, we make educational videos telling you why you should grow this, when it's to do it, and all this thing, answering these questions, and then you just DM us if you want to come for things, but also if you just DM her and tell her things that you would like to do, because she started farming for her own reasons, so you don't always know the gaps that other people need you to fill for them. So just let us know and we'll make it for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, I think this has been the most informative and educational cooking session. So a huge thank you for the time that you have given to us today and the beautiful food that you have made. Andile, I think if anyone has any last questions, they can come speak to you after the demonstration.
Yes,
but thank you so much all for attending. It was our first one of the weekend. Woo! Yay!
I'll be back on the stage at Uppers Fort doing some bean balls, another indigenous crop, cowpea bean balls.
Plant Powered Show pop-up podcast is here. Pull up a seat at the kitchen table and join me, Sean Lewitz, as I chat to local and international chefs, as well as health and wellness experts about this fascinating journey of food, health, and conscious living. Go ahead and follow the Plant Powered Show pop-up podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Apple Podcasts right now and take us home with you as we delve deeper into the world of plant-based living. The Plant Powered Show pop-up podcast.